Let us be aware that while they preach the supremacy of the state, declare its omnipotence over individual man, and predict its eventual domination of all peoples on the earth, they are the focus of evil in the modern world.
Расцветали яблони и груши, поплыли туманы над рекой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег, на крутой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег, на крутой.
We just did. Talked to anyone and everyone, talked to Alan Dershowitz at Harvard Law School, talked to anybody that we thought might possibly be of help, and went to meetings at the State Department, both in Washington and at the embassy in Moscow multiple times, consulted with State Department officials, consular officials for their recommendations, did everything anybody suggested, and nothing made any difference at all.
The unsentimental Soviet leadership from the days of the Bolshevik Revolution, under the leadership of Lenin, under the reign of terror imposed by Stalin, there's a common thread of Communist Party bureaucratic survival. That is, above all else, watch out for the enemy within.
Well, the first big group of Russians that I met was actually in the United States.
И потом, значит, мы пригласили ее к себе в номер. Вот. Но сказали, значит, без текилы к нам не приходи. Эм все время приходила с бутылкой текилы и, значит, общалась с нами. Ее интересовало все, что у нас происходит в России, в Москве, в общем, в Советском Союзе. Вот.
He asked me, do you remember that girl we talked about? She's in Moscow right now.
Она несколько раз заходила к нам. Я, откровенно говоря, боялась ее впускать сюда. Думаю, кто тут, может, какой-то посланник американский, и тут ходит, и вербует моего сына. И боязнь охватывала меня. Я и плакала, и думала что-то, и ходила, и с соседями.
I would stop people, they would question why you talking this. They would check your documents, and they realize she's American. I'm not American Russian, and they're questioning, how do you know her? And
could they arrest you?
If they see my kind of strange activities, they could. It's not just question of there is some kind of sign. You cannot talk to a foreigner. You cannot. It's sort of like unwritten rules.
We would have to sneak your father into the hotel because he wasn't allowed to come into a hotel for foreigners.
You think it's you individual, you entitled to have free connections, but it's first time I started feeling like not everything up to you.
I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I felt like I had to continue this. I had to get married. And it was really out of the blue.
Lynn suddenly said, I think we're going to be met by a guy with flowers. I said, what do you mean? She said, I think that this persuasion to visit Russia has a personal aspect to it. And lo and behold, when we landed, we were greeted by a young guy, a friend of Anne's, with flowers. He didn't speak any English. We didn't speak any Russian.
Полюбила я
dad's family, only his sister and nephew went. Everyone else was too scared to show up in public at the wedding palace, because they knew the KGB would be watching who came and would be interested in who was there, and they would be subject to questioning afterwards. And in fact, they were watching us. You could see them in a car outside and taking count of everybody who went in with us.
Конечно, я думала, какие-то американские шпионы. Я и сейчас к ним не очень лояльна. Нет, там тоже есть такие. Есть очень хорошие люди, как везде в стране, и есть паршивые. И ваш Обам тоже. А потом поближе познакомились. Вот уже 35 лет я уже как американский человек. Они близкие друзья.
It was a very fun week for everyone, again, until the moment we tried to leave the country at the airport. And at that time, everyone who'd come to my wedding was pulled aside, and everyone had their luggage torn apart. They were all personally searched, everything gone through, some things confiscated. And then they knew they were in the Soviet Union, and they got a taste of what the bad side could be like.
Suddenly, it's like really hit me strong. That's kind of, no connections. You have to jump over to the completely new life in some, and it was very difficult for me.
The Russians and the Americans had signed an agreement called the Helsinki Accords, where various countries signed on to a protocol that said that if people were married, they could live in the country of their own choice. And Anna Boris had decided to live in the United States under the Helsinki Agreement.
And then in April, got the news that Dad had been turned down by the Russian side for his exit visa. And that came as a complete shock.
Тогда были предположения, что у меня муж работал на номерном предприятии, и из-за этой связи, возможно, не выпускали моего брата.
After his first denial, there was an indication that some lower-level Soviet authority wanted a bribe in order to give permission for Boris to come to America.
You can't prove that, but you have a hunch, right?
Well, I gave somebody some money, but that person died at the airport.
Oh, died at the airport?
Well, that's right.
Was it that big of a bribe?
But meanwhile, I felt completely, and in some, home I was whispering. I didn't talk because I was, thinking my neighbors listening to me, somebody spying through the window to me. I was closing all shades. I became paranoid. I was very neurotic, very nervous. I felt like I go out of building. I started looking around. Somebody's watching me. I became so concerned about being watched. And I said, yes, we should do something because it cannot continue. It's already 4 years past. We're nowhere. And she would travel every couple months. It's so expensive.
In order to apply for an exit visa under Soviet rules, you had to get a certificate from your place of employment saying that you were done with your job and that they had no claims against you. And it seemed to be deliberately designed to be a catch-22 for potential emigres, because if the Soviet Union wanted to get those people in trouble, they could then arrest them for not working.
One day, I was 7 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. They arrested me, took me in a car and brought me to the detention center. They put me in a prison. I was very depressed with terrible feelings. And the second day, prosecutor came in, started questioning and started intimidating. They planning to open case against me.
After I found out what happened, I came home and obviously I told my parents, and my father especially took it as a really terrible sign for the future, that that it wasn't looking good at all for him ever getting out. So my father said, well, something has to help. What would help? What would they pay attention to? I said, well, and I was kind of joking. I said, well, if you demonstrate in Moscow, they'll pay attention to that because nobody demonstrates in Moscow. He said, okay, well, I'm going to go demonstrate in Moscow then. 4 other people who were his friends, plus his father, volunteered to go with him.
This nursery rhyme, rich man, poor man, beggar man, thief, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. So that's who I picked for my friends.
Good evening. Topping News 7 tonight, a story with all the elements of an international thriller. Alleged political corruption, Soviet embarrassment, State Department anger, and romance.
It is the story of 5 Americans and the ingenious demonstration they staged in Moscow yesterday aimed at winning a Russian's freedom.
So far, the Soviets have said no, but thanks to some ingenuity, things are looking better tonight.
After careful thought, the Pollocks formed a plan. Her husband, his father, and 3 friends traveled to Moscow. In a Moscow hotel, wearing T-shirts like this one, they inflated helium balloons marked Anne and Boris and passed out cards telling the couple's story, cards they smuggled in ordinary-looking decks. The intrepid demonstration has created a stir there and here.
It was going up to very high levels already in the Soviet Union, and they were going to do their best to find a solution for us.
And then the phone started going crazy. We started getting crazy calls from other journalists from the US, from the Associated Press, everybody wanting to come over for stories, for pictures. Then the phone rang later in the afternoon, and it was the KGB guys. He said, everything's being favorably resolved. You will be getting your visa.
And you know what? I haven't been happy. I didn't feel happy. Somehow, after all that strife, after all those effort, after all that things looking forward, finally, and I felt like, a little bit relief. I got result, but that feelings didn't bring me kind of happiness, because I sharply started feeling this is my last days in my country.
Я хотела, чтобы они остались в России и жили здесь, но почему-то выбрали место жительства ее, и она его туда забрала. В 1983 году он уехал в Америку. Долго переживала и плакала, было всякое, потому что я потеряла его.
There was a good chance he would never see his family again. He didn't know if he'd ever be allowed back into the country. He didn't know if his parents would ever be allowed out. So when he said goodbye, he was prepared to think that might be goodbye forever.
And when I was alone in a car driving, doing some errands to prepare to leave, because Anne said, just, do it fast because they might change their mind. And I was crying in the car. When I'm alone, I was really bursting into tears and crying. And just saying, I don't want to do anything. Just not want to leave. It's just only realization I already made that decision. I cannot just kind of back and forth. Kind of, yes, I want, yes, I don't want, yes. But it's somehow I just realized what I have to pay for that. And the paying for that was very heavy burden on me. And I got on a plane. I see on a plane was Soviet ice hockey team, whole team flying for world championship, playing games. And was jealous for them because I knew they're flying. They could see. So what was I looking for? To see outside world. But they're coming back. But I was jealous because I'm not coming back.
The couple never gave up hope. Now their battle with the Soviet bureaucracy is over. Boris received permission to leave the Soviet Union, and he and Anne have been rejoined in the United States. They're with us this morning. Good morning to both of you. I guess congratulations, belated congratulations.
Который раз лечу Москва-Одесса, опять не выпускают самолет. А вот прошла вся в синем стюардесса, как принцесса, надежная, как весь гражданский флот. Над Мурманском ни туч, ни облаков, и хоть сейчас лети до Ашхабада, открытый Киев, Харьков, Кишинев, и Львов открыт, но мне туда не надо. Сказали мне, сегодня не надейся, не стоит уповать на небеса. И вот опять дают задержку рейса на Одессу, теперь обледенела полоса. А в Ленинграде с крыши потекло, и что мне не лететь до Ленинграда? В Тбилиси там все ясно, там тепло, там чай растет, но мне туда не надо. Я слышу, ростовчане вылетают, а мне в Одессу надо позарез. Но надо мне туда, куда 3 дня не принимают, и потому откладывают рейс. Мне надо, где сугробы намело, где завтра ожидают снегопада, а где-нибудь все ясно и светло. Там хорошо, но мне туда не надо. Отсюда не пускают, а туда не принимают. Несправедливо грустно мне, но вот нас на посадку скучно стюардесса приглашает, надежная, как весь гражданский флот.